Am I the a-hole for going through with a threesome my husband wanted? Even though he couldn't handle it. Plus update.
Hey, welcome back to Story Glory. Here, I'll share submitted stories, Reddit posts, stories I find on the net, as well as a few of my own. If you like the story, please be sure to comment, like and subscribe. Today, we've got a Redditor here whose husband begged for a threesome. She agreed, but with one condition. He thought he'd love it, until he saw it happening. Be careful what you wish for, because this one blew up fast. Now let's get into it.
I, 30F, never thought I'd be posting something like this, but here I am. For privacy, I'll be using throwaway names. My husband will be Caleb and the other man involved is Brian, a co-worker of his. For months, Caleb had been pushing for a FMF threesome. He kept saying it was a fantasy of his, something he'd always dreamed of, and that he wanted me to pick the other woman to make it feel fair. I said no many times, but he kept bringing it up like it was this itch he couldn't ignore. Eventually, I agreed, but only if we did a MFM threesome first. I wanted him to feel what it would be like to share me before I was expected to share him. I told him he could choose the guy, just like I'd choose the woman later. To my surprise, he agreed. In fact, Caleb was the one who came up with what we called our fairness rule. He said we could stop the MFM at any point, no questions asked, no guilt, no resentment. And whatever happened in the MFM would be the limit for how far the FMF could go. Fair deal. At first, he joked about asking his best friend, but eventually, he picked Brian, a co-worker of his. I'd met Brian once at a company gathering, polite, a little reserved, nothing that raised red flags. It felt neutral enough. We invited Brian over the following weekend. I honestly thought Caleb might back out. He didn't. Brian came over, we shared a few drinks, and everyone tried to relax. Brian turned out to be more charming than I remembered. I could feel Caleb trying to keep things cool, but I could also see he was uneasy. Especially when the flirting and touching started. When we finally started undressing, it all shifted. Brian, who seemed lanky at first glance, turned out to be surprisingly toned. And when the pants came off, it got worse, at least for Caleb. Brian was significantly more endowed. And I saw the panic on Caleb's face. I hesitated. I waited for him to call it off, he had every right to. But he didn't. So we continued. Things started slow and awkward, but eventually, we found a rhythm. I tried to stay aware of Caleb, but I can't lie, I was enjoying myself with Brian. The physical excitement, the forbidden thrill, the way Brian touched me, it overwhelmed everything else. It wasn't just the physical differences, though they were obvious. It was the energy. The tension. The focus. At some point, I realized Caleb wasn't in the room anymore. Brian and I stopped. When I went to look for Caleb, I realized he had left the house completely. I felt sick instantly. I asked Brian to leave. I called Caleb over and over, no answer. After the fourth call, it went straight to voicemail. I drove around looking for him. I called his best friend. I cried until I couldn't anymore. He didn't come home that night. He's not close with family, no siblings, his parents passed, so I had no one else to reach out to. And now I'm stuck with this weight on my chest. Yes, I enjoyed it. But I also only went through with it because Caleb wanted this. He created the rules. He picked the man. He didn't stop it when he had the chance. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for going through with the threesome my husband asked for, even though he clearly wasn't ready for it?
Now here are some top comments to the original post. User Throwaway Trust Issues says, not the a-hole. He set the rules. He picked the guy. He could have stopped it at any moment, but he didn't. You honored the agreement, and he didn't speak up when it mattered. It's unfair for him to emotionally check out afterward when he had every opportunity to set a boundary beforehand. This was a two-way decision, and it sounds like you respected that. User empath but blunt says, "Soft, you're the a-hole. I get that you followed the rules, but you admitted that you saw the look on his face, the dread, the discomfort, and you still went through with it. You knew he wasn't okay and ignored the emotional signal. Just because someone technically agrees to something doesn't mean they're emotionally prepared. It feels like you saw him freeze and hit play anyway." User altogether messy says, "Everyone sucks here. He pressured you for a FMF threesome, and you played defense by countering with MFM. That's already not a great communication pattern. You both pushed each other into something neither of you really seemed to want. He picked the guy, yes, but you were hoping he'd back out and he was hoping to push through discomfort. It was doomed from the start. You both handled this poorly." User grief in motion says, "No assholes here. No bad people here, just a lot of hurt and miscommunication. He asked for something, you agreed with a condition, and you both thought you were prepared. Turns out neither of you were. This doesn't sound malicious, just a relationship stretching past what it was ready for. You need to talk, a lot. Maybe with a therapist." User blunt and burning says, "You're the asshole. You saw how uncomfortable Caleb was and went through with it anyway. You admitted he looked terrified when Brian undressed, and you still continued. What really gets me is that you didn't even notice when he left the room. You were so focused on Brian that your husband just disappeared and you didn't realize until it was over. That's not nothing. That's not neutral. You say you love him, but in that moment, your actions said otherwise." User neutered ground rules says, "No assholes here. This was a situation with emotional landmines from the start. Caleb wanted a fantasy. You proposed a condition. You both thought you were being fair. But sex, especially with someone else involved, doesn't operate on logic alone. You followed the agreement, and he didn't object or pull out when he had the chance. But emotional readiness isn't always obvious until it's too late. Now you're left holding the weight of his silence and confusion. There are no villains here, just two people who made a high-risk decision thinking they could handle the outcome. Therapy would honestly be a smart next step." User Order Jelly says, "Not the asshole. I've been in a similar position, and here's the thing. It's easy to think you can handle this kind of situation until you're actually watching it happen. I thought I was fine until I wasn't. But that's on me. Just like this is on Caleb. He agreed. He picked the guy. He didn't speak up. If he couldn't handle it, he should have said so. You didn't do anything behind his back. You played by the rules. You didn't manipulate him. If anything, he did that to himself by pretending he was okay when he wasn't. That kind of emotional aftermath is real, but it's his responsibility, not yours." Now for the updates.
Update 1. Caleb came back last night. After days of complete silence, he walked in like a shell of himself. No yelling. No accusations. Just this heavy, quiet presence. He barely looked at me. Went straight to our room without a word. He wasn't angry in the way I expected, it was more like something inside him had completely shut down. He wasn't cruel or cold. Just gone emotionally. He slept on the couch that night. Not because we fought, but because being next to me seemed to hurt him more than being alone. That silence said everything. I've never felt so physically close and yet so far from someone I love. And I don't know what to do next. Update 2.
2 weeks have passed since he came back. He's here in the physical sense. Sleeps in our house, eats meals, goes through the motions of everyday life. But he's emotionally vacant. It's like I'm living with someone who knows all my routines but none of my heart. We talk about dishes, bills, errands, surface-level things. Nothing deeper. He's careful with his words. Measured. Almost robotic. He doesn't touch me. Not even casually. No hand on my back as he passes by. No leaning into me on the couch. No absent-minded affection. It's as if any physical closeness might burn him. Even eye contact feels strained, like he's forcing himself not to look away too fast, like even looking at me is painful. And yet he's never once raised his voice. He's not cruel. He's not hostile. He's cordial. Which somehow makes it worse. It's like I'm not even worth getting upset over. Like he's already halfway gone. I've been walking around with a pit in my stomach. The silence between us isn't peaceful. It's suffocating. I've been telling myself to give him time, to not pressure him, to wait it out. But each passing day feels like I'm mourning something that hasn't even ended officially. Last night I finally broke. I told him how much this distance was killing me. That I felt like I was grieving a version of him that no longer exists. That I wish he would have just told me he couldn't handle it, instead of letting us go through with something so irreversible. That's when he finally collapsed. He cried, harder than I've ever seen him cry. And as the floodgates opened, everything he had been holding back came pouring out. He said he hates himself for initiating it all. For pushing so hard. For setting the rules, picking the man, and pretending he'd be okay. He thought it would be exciting, something to bring us closer. But instead it hollowed him out. And then he admitted something I knew in my gut. He's angry at me. Angry that I enjoyed it. That I looked like I was really into it. Especially toward the end when most of my attention was on the other man. That seeing that side of me, that kind of raw physical pleasure with someone else, it destroyed something inside him. But the worst part? He hates himself even more for being angry. Because he knows I only did it to honor the agreement he pushed for. That I never would have gone there on my own. That he placed me in that situation and now he can't look at me without feeling the weight of that decision. So here we are. Two people sitting in the wreckage of something that was supposed to be mutual. There's no yelling, no fighting, just pain. A lot of it. But finally at least it's no longer buried. I don't know what happens next. But now we're no longer pretending everything's fine. Update 3. It's been a little over 3 weeks since everything broke open between us. Since he finally let the pain out and we stopped pretending everything was okay. Since then, things have started to change. He's been warmer. Gentler. He holds my hand again. He'll brush my hair behind my ear when I talk. Last night he kissed my forehead while I was doing the dishes. Something he hasn't done in what feels like forever. It's not constant and it's not perfect, but it's real. And I've missed him so much. None of this happened overnight. There were a lot of late-night conversations. A lot of tears. Some days we barely said anything at all, just held each other in silence. Other days we said too much and it hurt. But we kept showing up for each other. And now, for the first time in a long while, things are starting to feel normal again. Not like the old normal, but like something new we're both building intentionally. There's still work to do. A lot actually. But we're doing it together. And for now that's enough. Update 4. It's been 2 months since my last update and on the surface things seem better. My husband has been more affectionate than he's been in a long time. Holding my hand without hesitation, kissing me goodbye in the mornings, cuddling up on the couch in the evenings. It's tender. It's comforting. And for a while I let myself believe we were truly healing. But there's still one part of us that hasn't come back, our sex life. Since everything happened we haven't been intimate, not even once. I've tried initiating gently and without pressure. He always pulls away with a soft excuse. I'm tired. Long day at work. Not feeling great. At first I let it slide. I didn't want to make him feel cornered. But as the weeks dragged on, it started eating at me. So I asked him. Directly. Calmly. I told him I noticed he was avoiding sex and I asked if we could talk about it. He smiled like everything was fine. Told me I was overthinking it. That we were just settling into a new rhythm. But I knew that wasn't true. Not even close. So I signed us up for couples therapy. Twice a week. He didn't fight it. I think in his own way he knew we needed it. Therapy has been good for us in a lot of ways. He's opened up about past trauma, insecurities he's buried for years, things I never knew he carried. But when it came to intimacy, especially sex, he clammed up. Every time the therapist gently nudged in that direction, he'd brush it off. Smile. Say we were just taking our time. But during our last session the therapist didn't let it go. She pushed, not aggressively but firmly. She told him the distance couldn't heal without honesty. That's when he finally broke. He said that every time he thinks about having sex with me he sees images of me with the coworker. That it replays in his head, uninvited and vivid. He said it's not that he doesn't want to be with me. It's that when he tries he feels like he's competing with a ghost version of that night. And then he admitted something that shattered me. He said he's thought about letting me be with other people. That maybe that would be better. Because he's convinced he'll never measure up again. Not physically, not emotionally. That being intimate now feels like setting himself up to be reminded of what he's not. It was heartbreaking to hear. Not because I was angry, but because I could feel how much he truly believes he's not enough for me. And I don't know how to convince him otherwise if he won't let me. So now we're here. Emotionally closer than we've been in years. But physically we're still miles apart. And I don't know how to bridge that gap. I love him. I don't want anyone else. But if he doesn't believe that, how do we move forward?
So, what do you think? Did she cross a line, or was Caleb the one who couldn't handle the rules he created? Was this just a painful miscommunication, or something deeper? Thanks for tuning in to Story Glory, where every story leaves a mark. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tales that captivate, inspire, or just make you think. Got a story suggestion or something to share? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, keep the stories alive.